biggest game of the weekend. It was played a Saturday afternoon on Peacock. It was a game between the teams ranked first and third in the AP poll. Final score number 3, Purdue 92, number 1, Arizona 84. Zach Edey, the reigning National Player of the Year. He got 22 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Fletcher Lawyer added 27. Braden Smith got 26. Purdue trailed by 6, then led by 17, won by 8. Deadleg, we'll talk about where the Boilermakers might belong in Monday's AP poll in a moment. But first, I know you're in HQ studio all day, watching everything, talking about everything. Your thoughts on Purdue's latest impressive win and how it went down.
I'm going to get to that, and I'm not going to send this podcast off the rails. I just want to say that your situation right now looks like you might be captive in a hostage situation. It's a heck of a backdrop you got going on right now.
They got a gun pointed at me right there.
Stop.
They got a gun pointed at me right there. They said, talk about Indiana's KenPom ranking one more time, and we're pulling the trigger.
Oh boy. Okay, let's go. Heck of a game. I thought for the most part it lived up to our expectations. Did it come down to a buzzer beater? No. But I'll tell you what, it's drastically different from the first time these teams played. In anticipation of talking about this one, these teams first met, as you well know, January 1 back in 1934. Yep. That was a 32-24 Purdue win, a combined 58 points. This game hit 58 points with 6 minutes to go in the first half.
I think that's proof. I think that's all the evidence you need to know that basketball has changed dramatically over the past 100 years.
Absolutely. For many reasons, no Umar Ballos playing back in 1934, nor Zach Edey's at that matter. But yeah, man, Purdue. I mean, what do you want at this point? They've got more quad wins than anyone. Have beaten Gonzaga, Marquette, Arizona, Bama, Tennessee. Those are all top 20 KenPom teams. The thing that I continue to be impressed with, I think I mentioned this on last weekend's show. So Purdue has faced a top 5 offense 5 times so far this season, those aforementioned teams. And in all of those games, that offense has performed below its average heading into the game. Now, this one was obviously a high-paced, and we got to get into Lawyer and Smith and what they did. But on the whole, Parrish, for Purdue to, I would say, authoritatively get this kind of win, and as coincidence would have it, getting their first win over a number 1 team since they did it in 2000 in the city of Indianapolis against number 1 Arizona. Just the third time they've ever won against number 1 team, and the previous ones they hadn't scored more than 64 points. Here, it's an outright, I don't want to say domination, but 92-84. If you watch the game, Arizona put up a good fight, but this was Purdue's to have. And I was impressed that they did it because they didn't shoot well from the foul line, 63%. The shooting across the board was relatively similar, and Arizona was able to match Purdue with points in the paint overall. Highly impressed with Lawyer, 27 points, best game of his career. He had 4 or 5 steals as well. Braden Smith had a couple of daggers, and Zach Edey hit the under. 38.5 was the over/under going in. GP, 22 points, 9 boards, 31, well under. I don't have my normal board with me, so instead of I was wrong. I got a that's what I got for you. You took the over.
I knew Zach Edey would let me down.
Your thoughts on the game?
I mean, Purdue controlled it, and then Arizona is so good that they just bang, 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 like an 11-0 run, and they're back in it. But Purdue largely controlled the game and did what it's been doing all season long, which is show that it is, yes, one of the best teams in the country, and yes, a legitimate national championship contender. And I know that should go without saying, given what they brought back and the number beside their name, and that the reigning Big Ten champs and all the computers love them and all the things they've already done this season. But they cannot win a game without somebody reminding you they're not going to win a game like this in March. I mean, it's you can't get one without the other. It's like peanut butter and, okay, I guess you need jelly. Here's the jelly. Every time you say Purdue did something good, Purdue is good, Purdue is great. Oh, look, Purdue just beat the number 1 team in the country. The replies are largely going to be from people telling you, oh, another great regular season for the Boilermakers. But they can't do it in March. They won't do it in March. I look forward to their second round exit. And it's so stupid. Like, it's just an independently stupid, undeniably stupid opinion to have, that because Purdue got upset in last season's NCAA tournament, that suggests this Purdue team can't win 6 games in the next NCAA tournament. Like, one, I don't guess one has nothing to do with the other, but one's got very little to do with the other. So that's frustrating to see. I'm sure more so for Matt Painter and Zach Edey than it is for me. But it is why once that tournament starts, I'll be rooting for Purdue as hard as I root for anybody, because I want this narrative to be stripped away from them, and for folks to accurately describe what it is Matt Painter is doing without any sort of qualifiers. Because what Matt Painter is doing right now is running quite literally one of the best basketball programs in America. And yes, I do think that regardless of whether he's got the best team in the sport right now, I do think that Purdue should be ranked number 1 in the AP poll on Monday. Where are you at on that?
So yeah, I talked about that on HQ tonight. My guess is Kansas will get number 1. If I had a vote, I would vote Purdue number 1 because I think on balance overall it deserves it. And I acknowledge that, the game was in Purdue's backyard. These two teams will meet again next year. I think the game is in Vegas in 24. So this is a 2-game series. For as fun it would have been on campus, take what you can get. And that building looked rocking. I would put Purdue number 1 with all that is accomplished. And this isn't relevant specifically to where they should be rated and ranked this season. They got 2 more bye games awaiting them, and they'll probably win them, and they'll have 3 straight consecutive regular seasons of not having lost a non-conference game. So to your point about Painter and the program he's running, Purdue's obviously operating as a top 5 program. I get it if you want to wait, if you're like, okay, I'll take Purdue for what it is now, but we got to see it happen in March. I'm not going to push back on that, but you're going to miss out a ton along the way because the team continues to expand in its capability to knock off pretty much any team in the country. Arizona rightfully had earned that number 1 ranking, and I think rightfully had been regarded as the best team. I think Houston was still regarded as that per the metrics. But if you'd watch Arizona play, the style they had played, how well Caleb Love had come along. Caleb Love, by the way, good again. I mean, really, really good. 29 points in this one, 6 boards, 3 assists. Had some Johnny on the spot moments that kept Arizona within striking distance on a day where Ballo didn't play that well overall, but point I'm really stretching out to make here is that Purdue, to me, has the best resume. I can't even necessarily say it's the best team for sure right now. It's a pretty crowded conversation, and I love that. But when you get, again, if you watch the game from start to finish, Fletcher Lawyer came ready, and that had to be such a welcome sight for people in Purdue's camp. Braden Smith is growing into one of the best point guards in the country, unquestionably on that. And then you don't even need a huge, like there was a stretch where they relied on Edey, but you don't need to have him carry you. In fact, I would argue that Purdue is more likely to get picked off against an inferior team if it's relying on Edey versus, having that support system with those 2 guards. And it won't be just them 2, but they happen to be the big ones that showed up today. I mean, the fact that you had Smith go for 26 and he was probably the 3rd most important person on the floor from start to finish there really speaks volume. So I would say Purdue should be number 1. I'm predicting Kansas will hold number 1. I already know that you're going to put Purdue number 1 because we are at the point in the season where you're ranking these teams based on resume accomplishments, and Kansas does not have a resume that can stand up next to Purdue's and be ranked above them at this point.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it's close. I think if Kansas is number 1, it will only be because Kansas was number 2 last week. That'll be the only reason. Like, if you stripped away the first 6 AP polls and just said, hey, guys, hey, everybody, let's turn in a ballot Monday morning. Who you think's number 1? I think Purdue would win that easily. But because Kansas is already number 2 and Kansas did go on the road and get a win over a blue blood program this weekend, I think it's going to be close. I don't know which way it'll go. I tweeted, I'm not sure which way it'll go, but it's pretty clear in my mind. It should be Purdue. If you want to have a conversation about who are the best teams, that can be a conversation that includes Purdue, Kansas, Arizona, Houston, UConn. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Houston is undefeated, strong computer numbers. I just don't think Houston's done enough. Like, if Houston had been my preseason number 1, they would still be my number one because I would say they hadn't done anything to lose it, but I don't think they've done enough to gain it. And so I'm just going to leave them. I'm picking between Purdue and Kansas because they played real challenging schedules so far and done well against them. Let's run through some numbers real quick to sort of hammer home the point I think that makes it clear it should be Purdue over Kansas. Purdue is 10-1, lone loss in overtime at Northwestern. They got wins over the teams ranked 4th, 6th, 7th, and 9th at KenPom. So they have 4 top 10 KenPom wins, 6 top 50 KenPom wins. That's Purdue. Kansas also 10-1, lone loss by 14 to Marquette on a neutral. Kansas has 2 top 10 wins over KenPom teams and 3 top 50 wins over KenPom teams. So both teams have one loss. Purdue's in overtime, so close game, true road at Northwestern. But Kansas is by double digits on a neutral to a better team. So how do you balance those things? I think it's kind of a wash. A close loss on the road, as opposed to a double-digit loss on a neutral. Clearly, Kansas lost to a better team, but Purdue's was in a true road environment as opposed. However you feel about that, I don't think there's much difference there. So now you look at the win column, and again, it's not close. Purdue has 4 top 10 KenPom wins. Kansas has 2. Purdue has 6 top 50 KenPom wins. Kansas has 3. They have a common opponent in Marquette. Purdue beat them. Kansas didn't.
Yeah.
They were the same. They were in the same multi-team event, Maui. Purdue won it. Kansas didn't. It seems clear that the AP voters, if they're smart, who knows? But if they're smart, broadly speaking, they should elevate Purdue to number 1 in the AP poll for the second time this season on Monday. But I don't know if they will.
Yeah, we'll see. If they don't, I mean, it's not the end of the world.
It will actually be.
It will not be. I assure you of that.
No,
Purdue is in the driver's seat for the number 1 overall seed right now. And we're going to get to Kansas in just a second here. I will note that Saturday was the first time Tommy Lloyd had lost in 7 games against a Big Ten team. And I'll reemphasize the fact that Purdue, to no surprise, given what Edey can do, Arizona entered the game outscoring its opponents by 22 points on average in paint points on Saturday. That was truly, by definition, neutralized. Both teams had 40 apiece. And Arizona's got 5 players averaging between 12.3 and 14.1 points. But on Saturday, that was not the case. You had 3 players that passed that threshold. Love had 29, Ballo had 13, and then Johnson had 24. In fact, I thought he was I thought in a loss, if you're an Arizona fan, he continues to be a really bright spot for what you'll do moving forward as a two-way piece. The San Diego State transfer showing up large, 24 points, 8 rebounds, had a really big transition dunk there. You didn't get as much from Krivas as I thought you'd need to do. But you know, it's a loss. It's a loss that will age beautifully because Purdue is going to continue to look good. And we think Arizona is going to be in command in the Pac-12. So, hey, you take an L. Tommy Lloyd has very few of them since he started coaching Arizona. This to me was more about Purdue reinforcing the fact that it has the strongest resume and a case to be as good as just about any team in the country.